My name is Sam Sloan. I'm a candidate for President of the United States. One of the things I would like to do when I'm elected president, is I want to erect a statue in honor of a great American patriot, Edward Snowden. I think his statue should be erected in Union Square. I think in New York City, that's the ideal place for a statue for Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden is a great man, and he's done great things for this country. I want to explain, there's some background in this. What happened to Edward Snowden happened to somebody before him. It happened to Bobby Fischer. And I'll tell you the story of how these two people, Edward Snowden and Bobby Fischer, connected together. Bobby Fischer was, of course, the world chess champion. He won the championship in 1972 by defeating Boris Spassky in Reykjavik, Iceland. I was the best friend of Bobby Fischer. By the way, in case anybody doubts I was really the best friend, there's a recent book about this, not written by me, of course, but written by somebody over in Yugoslavia that also quotes Bobby Fischer as saying this. But I was with Bobby Fischer when he won the World Chess Championship in Reykjavik, Iceland. In fact, I was the only person who was invited to sit at his table at the Ball of the Century, the celebration they had right after he had won the World Championship. Well, there were two Icelandic girls sitting with Bobby Fischer and another chess grandmaster, Kenteros, and then I was invited to sit with him. Nobody else was allowed to approach Bobby Fischer. And then I was with him just before he went to Iceland, when he went back to New York. And then, of course, I've kept in touch with him over the years. What happened was, 20 years later, he decided to play a rematch for the World Chess Championship against the same player, Boris Spassky. He won the match by about the same margin, by about the same score as he won the first match. So he won the 1992 match by the same score, almost the same score as he won the 1972 match. But then the United States had imposed sanctions against Yugoslavia because the match was played in Yugoslavia. About 10 years later, in 2000, about 8 years later actually, because the match was in 1992, in 2000, they decided that Bobby Fischer had violated sanctions by playing the match. Bobby Fischer, by the way, was completely destitute. He had no money at all when he played the 1992 match. He was actually living in a home. He wasn't living in a homeless shelter. Chess players had put him up in their apartments and given him a place to live to hide him because he was. There was a movie, Searching for Bobby Fischer, which accurately explains the situation. Bobby Fischer went into hiding after winning the World Chess Championship in 1972, coming out of it hiding only to play the 1992 match, then went back into hiding, and then he was still in hiding, and then the United States decided to declare him that he had committed a crime of some sort. We don't know what crime it could possibly be, by playing the chess rematch against Boris Spassky in 1992. So they issued, in year 2000, they issued a warrant for his arrest. Now, I was the only person, I believe, almost the only person, not the only person. There was at least two other people who knew where Bobby Fischer was. One was Pal Benko and the other was Eugenia Tori. And they knew where Bobby Fischer was, but other than them and me, nobody else really knew where Bobby Fischer was. But nevertheless, he had been in Hungary, and he suddenly abruptly decided to leave Hungary in early January, 1st of February of that year, and he flew to Japan. I tell you a little aside. Japan. Bobby Fischer previously told me that he liked Japan because Japan was an ally with Hitler during World War II. Well, Bobby Fischer was a little bit strange about things like that. But in any case, so when you go to Japan, if you know about Japan, if you're a foreigner, you have to leave the country about every 90 days. Usually you have to leave the country every 90 days and go to some other country, like, for example, South Korea, get a new visa, then come back to Japan. So people who live in Japan regularly leave and come back, leave and come back. So Bobby Fischer was doing that with the Philippines. He was flying to the Philippines, getting a new Japanese visa, coming back, staying for a while, and going back again. On one of these trips, the United States decided to extradite him to America to face charges that he violated the sanctions by playing this chess match in which he had won $3.5 million. We don't know. We don't really know on what grounds they were going to extradite him to America, or what they said he did wrong by playing this chess match in Yugoslavia. But nevertheless, what they did was they revoked his passport. So when he went to the airport in Japan to get on the airplane to fly to the Philippines, they said, "Well, you don't have a valid passport," because the State Department had revoked his passport. So they arrested him in Japan and put him in jail there, and they were trying to extradite him back to New York. Now, I was in contact with him indirectly And I said, look, they can't make a case against you. They have no charge against you. You didn't do anything. You played a chess game. What's wrong with that? Even though it was in Yugoslavia, I mean, a lot of people played chess in Yugoslavia. None of them are being arrested. But anyway, he didn't listen to me. He insisted that he wasn't going to go back, that they were going to put him in jail for 10 years. Turns out he was right, and I was wrong. They would have put him in jail for 10 years had he gone back. So what finally happened was Iceland came to the rescue. He had won the World Chess Championship in Reykjavik, Iceland in 1972. And so they did a great thing for Bobby Fischer. They made him their citizen, a citizen of Iceland. They declared him, the parliament had a meeting and declared him a citizen of Iceland. This, of course, got the United States government very upset, especially under George W. Bush. They were very angry at Iceland for making Bobby Fischer a citizen. You know, they're making such a huge international case out of a mere chess player. All he was is a guy who played chess. And by the way, he was the most pro-American person and most anti-Soviet person could you imagine. He hated those Ruskies. He hated the Russians. He loved America. And it's unbelievable. Why would they imprison a guy for playing a chess match in Yugoslavia when he was the most pro-American person? So anyway, he did go to Iceland sent their own airplane, their own private airplane, over to Japan to pick him up, and they flew him to Hotel Lofleader, which has an airstrip behind that hotel, so that he would not go to Keflavik Air Base because they would have arrested him in Keflavik Air Base because it's also a NATO base where the American military is in control. Okay, so then Bobby Fischer got back, and he died at age 64. Now, Edward Snowden comes along, and the same thing happens. He goes over to Hong Kong, and he reveals this information about how all of our telephone conversations and everything is being collected. And so what they did with Edward Snowden, they did the same thing. They revoked his citizenship by revoking his passport in order to extradite him back to America, to make it impossible for him to leave the country and make it impossible for him to travel, so he would have no choice and he would be brought back here where he would serve a very long prison sentence. Fortunately, Putin came to the rescue and granted him, as he was legally required to do, he was legally required under the law of refugees, Putin was legally required to give Edward Snowden refugee status in Russia. Because just as a lot of Russians who escaped from Russia or escaped from the Soviet Union came over to America and got refugee status over here and political asylum over in America, tens of thousands of Russians have gotten political asylum in the United States. And we were required to give them political asylum. When they escaped from Russia, they came here. We were under international law by the United Nations. We are required to give those people political asylum. And Putin was required to give political asylum to Edward Snowden because the United States government was trying to extradite him to America for political reasons. So that in summary explains why Edward Snowden is a great man, a great patriot, a wonderful person, did a great service to the United States government, and we should erect a statue in his honor in Union Square. Thank you.